All right, we are live. Asif, where are you? How election day? Election day has happened. So just you know, walk me through, or just how was your election day? Where did you vote? Are you still feeling nervous? We're live, by the way.
No. I'm not nervous now because it looks like there will not necessarily be any wave in favor of Jamaat. So I was just wondering whether that's going to happen, and it looks like it's not going to happen.
It's not going to
So
happen.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
what is the final count? What is the likely count that we are looking at? Seat counts.
Uh, I think it will come close to 170 or 180 because it looks like Jamaat is doing pretty good in northern part of the country, right? In the
Right.
divisions where they were supposed to do well, they're doing really really well, and it's sometimes because of their candidates and sometimes it's because of the internal conflict that BNP had to go through, like Kushtia and other places. So it looks like in those places they're going to do really really well. But I think they have done exceptionally bad in Chattogram specifically, right? So I think
Right.
they're not in the city. They're not actually getting even 2 seats. But Dhaka city is quite surprising. I think they're getting few seats there.
They're leading in two sets, so it seems that they have won one, the Battle of the Cyphals.
Right, and it's again it's BNP's own doing, right? BNP's rebel candidate and the votes get kind of divided, split, and that caused that rise.
Right. There are three Cyphals running, none of them are Dhaner Shish.
Right.
If you want to vote BNP, you don't really know whom to vote for.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. And what's the other seat um, that that Jamaat is leading at the moment? The Amir seat, presumably.
Yeah, that's what I heard. That's what I heard that Jamaat is leading in the Amish seat. And I also heard that they're also leading in Nahid seat, but I'm not sure about that. Because they're
So
clearly not
I
leading.
right.
Yeah, please. Yeah,
No, no, it's so one issue is obviously that, like, we don't know, we don't know who's actually leading and who's not, right? Because
right.
there are all these threads where people just say এগিয়ে আছেন, সামনে
Right.
আছেন. What does that actually mean, right?
It's quite clear, right? I think what we have seen in the last few days, a candidate will not necessarily gonna win in all the centers. There are some
Right.
strong centers, there are some weak centers. So when you just get a result from the strong centers, and you can kind of feel confident, or your supporters can feel confident and say that we are going to win. But when the other centers results start pouring in, and one big center can cause a real upset, real change, real shift. Think about Kulna 5. The whole night we saw that Mia Golamparar was leading and everything, but it looks like right now Mr. Lobby is going to win because at the last few centers he did exceptionally well. So things can change based on a candidate's strength in particular centers, whether the center is near his house, whether he has a strong base support there. So I think those are the things. I think this is where. And this kind of shows that the election is really really competitive, right? Where the elections are competitive. In some places, it looks like it's kind of a easy win for some particular candidates, but other than that, where it is competitive is really really competitive. And the same goes probably for Sargis. I heard that he lost by a very slim margin. So and this is where the local issues, the local context matters, and I think the local context matters for the Dhaka city too.
So in Dhaka city, the other seat where Jamaat was expected to do really well, or expected to may even win, was also a seat where BNP has a rebel candidate, right? So this is the one with Tuli
Oh,
from for BNP,
yeah,
and Arman for Jamaat, and Saju for as a rebel. What's happening
right.
there?
And right. I think Jamat probably owned there, right? Because that's what I heard, or pretty close to win because it looks like he was ahead most of the night, and you know I at the last I checked, and I need to check the number, like
Right.
what's the actual vote count.
But have we actually seen any numbers, or is it just again just WhatsApp thread that somebody's ahead? Asif, are you there?
Uh, I think I saw it in one of the news.
Asif, we are probably having difficulties on your connection. So 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 viewers who are watching, so the idea here is basically that people can just drop in and we just talk about the elections. So it's not a talk show, it's not a podcast, it's a new concept. It's basically a live adda. So we had never done this before. We don't know how this is going to work. The links have been shared, but if you also want to drop in, just drop in a comment uh, in the YouTube, and let's see how the technology may or may not work. Saiful Bhai,
Assalamualaikum.
walaikum salam. Welcome to the show, or welcome to the live adda. Where are you based and where are you going? So that's the first question. Obviously, you're driving, so you're not in Dhaka.
Yes, I'm in Orlando, Florida. I'm just coming
Acha.
out of my class. I had a lecture early
Okay.
morning and office hours, so I'm going back to home from my class.
Okay. Uh, did you vote?
No, I did not.
Did you not? Okay, I did not either. It's there you go. That's a tale of us Probashis, right?
Yes, you are in Dhaka, right?
No, no, I am in Canberra, Australia,
Oh,
and
okay.
it is very early morning here. It's 3:37 a.m.
Oh, oh, I see.
So
You must be very sleepy.
well, so we have been waiting for this election for such a long time. So I thought that
Right.
yeah, like I just couldn't go to sleep. So
I
so
can
here we are,
understand.
right?
Yeah, I had to sleep because I had a morning class. So it's 11:37 a.m. Florida time.
And, but now you're going home and you get to go and actually watch the results, right?
For an hour and a half, and then I have to take my car for an oil change.
Okay. I have just added Oh, here you go. We've got Saif. So
Hi.
we've got two Saifs. Okay, so Saiful Bhai and Saif. Do you guys know each other? You are obviously both in brain, but well, okay.
I don't think I've met Saiful Bhai before.
Me neither.
I'll let you guys to introduce yourself. That's probably the easiest thing. This is not done. So
Okay,
Hi, Saiful Bhai.
I'll go first. My name is Saiful Khandekar. I live in Orlando, Florida. I'm a professor of physics in University of Central Florida. Yep. And I was telling Jyoti Bhai that I had early morning class, so and office hour. But yeah, I've been following the results since morning. And what about you?
Saiful Bhai, I'm Saif Shah Mohammed. I'm a corporate lawyer at a firm here in Washington, D.C.
Okay.
And I think we're all, waited with bated breath about what's going on.
Yeah, I think
and
I
and,
responded
and
some of your messages in online. Yeah, I now remember. Yes.
yeah. Saif and I argue a lot, or we debate a lot, and we've also got. And I think we've got Zafrul. Zafrul, is that you who has just joined in?
I'm sorry.
No, we've got somebody else who's just joined in. I'm just trying to figure out. Zafrul, is it? Oh no, it's Zafar. Okay, and Zafrul. Okay,
Also
and
Zafrul. Zafar
also
and Zafrul. So,
Zafar and Zafrul, and we've got
and there are
Rubaya.
many other people around.
Right. Okay. So,
Hi, Zafar Bhai.
firstly, we haven't actually done this before, so we don't really know how this is going to work. Huh? So,
It's a
just
conversation.
it's a conversation, and yeah. So fire away, and yeah, like sort of this is no moderation or anchor or, but then again, like with so many people, how does that work? How does that work? Saif, how is this going to work?
I
Well,
think
like I said, I
you're
think
gonna need
you
a
imagine
moderator.
that this is just like we're sitting around a table and we're having an adda, we're sitting in a living room. How does it work there? This is how it works here. The only thing is we're all in different places.
We need a moderator. We need a moderator who would give
Well, that's what
floor.
Jyoti is doing, right?
Am I doing that? Okay, I'm doing that.
Oh,
Okay, so
me and you can both be the moderators. We can do that. Rubaiyat is joined, so that's good.
so we've got time zone. So let's see, we've got North America, where it's late morning, and I'm here in Canberra, which is very early morning, and
Okay.
then of course we've got Dhaka, where it's late at night.
Okay, but listen, Samekta Kothapoli, what we should do in by way of moderation is anyone who wishes to have the floor, you got to tell us something which we don't know. Give us some, dazzle us with some piece of information or some piece of an analysis.
I
Okay,
better
in that
drop
case,
out of
I'm
this
just going to.
call right now.
Sorry, go on. Go on.
Yeah, go ahead. You're there. Join in, man.
So there is also a live adda going on in Dhaka, by the way. So us
Yeah,
Probashins were missing out. So
yeah.
yeah,
Shobi
okay.
shobi chaltese, but people can go
Sorry,
in and
Jyotis.
out with the
Okay,
two.
okay. I'm going to ask Saif that, like you are saying it from far. What are you saying in various WhatsApp threads?
Which Saif?
You.
Saiful Khandekar or
No, you,
Saif?
Saif. Onake, I would have called him Saiful Bhai.
Yeah. I mean, what I'm seeing, and maybe there is some bias to this in terms of what WhatsApp groups I'm on. I mean, I definitely feel like the level of what do I say? Either excitement or concern that a lot of people had about Jamaat's performance. I feel that has died down. I still think that people are finding it very difficult to follow where things are in terms of numbers. At least from the outside, I mean, you guys might have better inside sources, but at least from the outside, it's keep track. But the overall sort of feeling I have is that people are less excited or less concerned about the Jamaat victory than they were.
Yeah, so that is a good point that people are finding it difficult to understand where the numbers are. People are finding it very difficult to know where the numbers are. On that, so our numbers guy is Rubaiyat. So I'm going to go to Rubaiyat, and he has switched off his video and mic, but I'm hoping he's there so that he can tell us what the numbers are at the moment and where we can find them, other than these various WhatsApp threads where it's hard to tell, what is a real number and what is just some random noise people are sharing.
Sure, Rubaiyat is just joining us. He was charging his phone briefly. But yeah.
Okay.
Before Rubaiyat
Yeah,
says, let
I'm
me make
here. I
one
have to
point about
charge my
Jamaat,
phone.
and then I'll pass it on to Rubaiyat if I may. I think one of
Sure.
the interesting things is that Jamaat may actually be suffering from these high expectations they had. It got to such an area, such a situation that people here in Bangladesh, certainly in the tri-state Gulshan Bonani Bayadara, were worried that we were going to actually see Jamaat come to power. We heard many people talk of that. That being the case, if they end up getting 60 seats, let's say 50, 60 seats, instead of that seeming like a victory, it might look like a bit of a defeat.
Yeah.
So that's something to bear in mind.
I am
Anyway,
little
Rubaiyat, over to
surprised.
you.
I'm little surprised that Bobby Hajjaj is getting beaten, by Mamunul Haq. I mean, it shows neck and neck. So that is a little bit of surprising, and I think
Why does that
NCP Jamaat
surprise
did
you?
pretty well in Dhaka.
Bobby's a friend, and I'm very much hopeful that he would win. But that was always going to be a tough race.
Yeah. But from the WhatsApp and everything else, before Rubaiyat Bhai comes in, it looks like PNP will definitely win majority. But the question is how much? How big is this? That's my feeling. Reading, since morning, watching and all the thing. I don't know who else shared this.
So I'm still trying to fix my phone, but coming quickly, I think the results are settling so well with Innovation's polls.
Victory lap.
So we got Jamaat at 31% locked for three consecutive rounds, and we now see that they are at exactly 31.37%. We got NCP locked in now round two at 5%. We see that. Uh, there was a 10% margin between Jamaat and BNP, which is now Jamaat NCP and the BNP alliance is, I think last time I saw is around 10%. We call 46% versus 36%. Jyoti Rahman can confirm. We were doing some simulation exercises and we were very confident about 10 to 12% margin at the national level. We are getting 46%, 36%. Then the question was, okay, how it will work out on seat counts. And there we had one assumption that Jamaat will win a lot very close and lose a lot very close. And actually, what you can see, we are just hearing that Lobby, he won just by 1,800 votes, I think, against Kolam Parwar. And Sarjis lost by around how many? 1,000 votes or even less. So uh, this is very interesting because what we are seeing is that indeed there was a surge. And if you look and compare with our previous election, 2008, which we can use as a baseline, BNP had 37%, if I'm not wrong. And so they added 10% from their baseline, while Jamaat added more than 20% from their baseline, or in fact, it would be around 25%. So we actually did see a surge in Jamaat votes, which is what amplified in the social media that we were seeing, okay, where is this Jamaat vote coming from? Voila, you have 25% hearing more Jamaat and only 8 or 10% more BNP that you are hearing. And that's exactly what we are seeing now in the national result. So I think it's a fantastic election. It's a great election in terms of electoral analysis that went into it, in terms of political analysis that went into it, and also in terms of the kind of social fabric that we tried to understand. I'll pause there. So over to you, Jyoti Rahman, and refresh us on where we are.
Okay, so I'm still trying to find an overall seat count that has been called. So this is one thing that probably has not been done very well. In the olden days, there used to be the BTV formal count, and that is clearly not very efficient. Um, and different channels are showing different things. So I actually don't know what the formal seat count at the moment is. The latest that I had was from Shomoy TV, which said BNP has confirmed wins in 50 and Jamaat has confirmed wins in 38. That may sound very close, but this is because, as Rubayat was explaining, Jamaat has, it has concentrated victories. It's not a nationwide party. It has won in certain districts and so on.
Yeah.
Right? So there's a whole bunch of states where BNP is ahead, but we don't know exactly how many and where they are. So that's the big picture. And then after that, if we actually look at various big ticket names, so far there hasn't been any big losses from BNP. So all the people that you would expect to win have won. So for example, um, uh, actually, yes. So all the people that we have expected to win have won. So, for example, Tariq Rahman has won. Mirza Fakhrul Islam Alamgir has won. Amir Khosrow Mahmood Chaudhry, and so on. So all the big names that one would expect has been confirmed, but then again, nothing confirmed yet, right? From the Jamaat side, I don't know if the Amir, Dr. Shafiqur Rahman, has formally won. I haven't seen that, but in various WhatsApp threads, it said he's ahead. Um, Dr. Taher has won, so he is number two in Jamaat. Number three, Mia Gulam Parwar has lost. So that's a big name that has lost. NCP, it seems, has actually done. It's quite interesting. So I would say that NCP has done very well. NCP, if you follow social media, it seems that they have won the whole election, which is obviously not even possible because they're running only in 30 seats. They have won five, I think it seems so far. Uh, Hasnat Abdullah was always expected to win, and he has won. Akhtar Hussain is ahead in Rangpur, and a few others. Um, I haven't gotten any confirmation about Nahid. So that's the big count at the moment so far. So BNP on course to win um, a thumping majority, but not a two-thirds majority. So comfortable majority, maybe 170, 180, 190, who knows? Uh, but well short of two-thirds. There are BNP rebels. Notable BNP rebel that has won is Rumin Farhana in Brahmanbaria. She has, but yeah, so BNP is looking at 170 to 190 or thereabouts. Jamaat, yeah, probably 60, 70 or thereabouts. And NCP at the moment is probably looking maybe five, all of which are, none of which actually come as a surprise to people who had taken Rubaiyat's poll, innovation poll, very
I
seriously.
think the only surprise is I think NCP has overperformed. I would say.
You could say that. You could say that. You could say that.
And
Yeah.
then of course it's interesting to speculate as to how much of that has been on their own steam and how much of that has been because they're in an alliance with Jamaat. But I think that's certainly there was a lot of criticism they faced for allying with Jamaat, and they said, well, it's not an ideological alliance; it's really just a strategic electoral alliance. And then many of us were thinking, well, at the end of the day, would it be worth it? But if you're looking at it from a realpolitik point of view, it certainly seems to have paid dividends for them. So that's going to be, I think, interesting because I think there were many people who were thinking that they might get wiped out. They thought maybe Hasnat would win, but perhaps no one else. And now that seems as though they will have overperformed that. I think the NCP have the opposite advantage of Jamaat in a sense that near the end, people expected the Jamaat to do so well. Even a good showing by the Jamaat will seem as though they have underperformed. And people had such low expectations of the NCP after all the polling that even a modest showing, 4, 5, a half dozen seats, would actually seem to be like a big victory for them.
No, that sounds spot on. Does anyone have any new numbers? So I had in one of the WhatsApp threads, I saw a quip about Dhaka 17, that the fear of Jamaat winning took the old money elites, not looking at anyone here in particular, to get out and vote for Dhaneshish first thing in the morning, and probably first time in their lives they took rickshaw. Care to comment?
Yeah.
Anybody? So what do you guys think in the big picture sense? What does the election result mean?
Well, actually, there's one last thing I'd like to sort of discuss on this, which is the turnout. And that's something which has surprised people. Okay. It's now looking as though it's going to be maybe 54, 55%. Okay. That's the number I'm hearing. And we just had this discussion internally just now. We have offline discussions as well as online. How much of that can be explained by Awami League not participating? And our feeling was that much of it can, but not all of it. Right? But we don't know. Of course, we don't know if it could account for 100% of the reason. Or has something changed? Are we really, have the days of seeing 70, 75 plus percent voter turnout, are those now gone? In that even if Awami League were to participate, let's talk hypothetically in a 2031 election, are we now looking at a new normal of Bangladesh having maybe 60, 65% voter turnout? That's something worth thinking about. And if so, why? What would be that? But India, for instance, had 55% in its last national election, if I'm not wrong. And that's much more normal in the world. So in fact, our high turnout has been an unusual anomaly in Bangladesh, and maybe for various reasons, maybe simple reasons, maybe complicated reasons, those things are no longer it's no longer the case. It's an interesting question. I don't have an answer, but I wonder.
I have two observations, if I may.
Well, okay, so I sorry, yeah, go on. Who's making the observation? Sorry.
Oh, yeah. So, number one, in terms of the
Yes.
turnout, I believe the turnout is lower compared to the average because of AL lack of participation. So, that's what I also feel. But 2008 participation, that number is an outlier. So that is not normal. The second thing, observation is that the result is not a comfort for BNP because they were that July, August, the result would have been different. So I think BNP need to analyze why did
So if we
why they did not do that well in comparison. I mean, and that otherwise there could be other surprises in the future, in my opinion.
I think other Saif has his hand up. Saif, shoot.
Yeah, I think one of the things to think about, and I think as we get more data and we look at the turnout figures, I mean, Army League not participating, I think just per se that should have some kind of impact, right? That would be the expectation. But the other expectation, other hypothesis is that is there a difference in turnout in seats that are closely contested versus seats that, it's pretty much a landslide, right? I mean, if you look online, the expectation was that, this is going to be a close election, but when you sort of dig one level further down, I think there were a lot of seats on the table where there wasn't an expectation that it would be close, right? And to the extent that you know that it's not going to be close in your seat, as a voter, do you think that you are or you aren't going to show up, right? When you actually have some weight that's going to be put on your choice. And I think what we need to unpack somewhere along the line when the numbers are in is whether some of the depressed voting has to do with a big segment of the seats actually not being competitive in the way that these elections were set up. And I don't know where the numbers are going to be, whether we have anything that gives us some insight into that.
I think, Saif, that you make a very, very excellent point. So if that conjecture is true, then we would see very depressed turnout, or relatively depressed turnout in Dhaka compared with Rajshahi, right? Because in Rajshahi, as in Rajshahi division, right, or districts in North Bengal, because the districts in North Bengal, or the seats in North Bengal, were competitive. Jamaat was making a big push, and BNP was defending a lot of seats, so to speak. So you would expect then high turnout over there, whereas seats in Dhaka division and Mymensingh division, so not just in Dhaka city, but in that central part of the country, where Jamaat didn't even have any candidates in many seats. A lot of the seats were Khilafat Majlis and Bangladesh Development Party and other outfits that no one had ever even heard of, right? So the contest there was between BNP and BNP Rebel, and and BNP was expected to win because not all the rebels were strong, and so in that situation, yeah, probably for the student vote. And I think, again, we need to look really into the numbers, but there is probably something into this because the turnout, I think, was in fact lower in Dhaka division compared with North Bengal. So that is a very good point, Sai. The other thing I would, so I just did some back of the envelope numbers, right? So if the Awami League absence is, let's say that is the key factor, okay? So if we think that the baseline participation should have been something like 75%, okay, because that's what we had in the 90s. So in 96 and 2001, turnout was 75. This time the turnout was 55. So you have, for every 100 people, there were 20 Awami Leaguers that, that's the difference between 75 and 55, right? 20 out of 75. So if the turnout was 75 and 20 of them were Awami League, then of the casted vote, you're actually looking at something like 1/3 or 28%. And if you believe that, then that is essentially saying that Awami League support is not that low. Awami League support of 1991, Awami League won about 30% of total votes. So basically what that is saying is 18 months after July, Awami League support is where it was in 1991, as in, it's got its base.
Saeed,
And
come into the conversation.
okay, so basically we have two competing conjectures, and they're both probably true to a certain extent. One is that this wasn't really a competitive election in many places, and that's why the turnout was depressed. And there's some evidence to that. And the other one is that the Awami League photos didn't show up. And if that's the case, then the implication is that Awami League support is not as low, or that they have not lost as much support as many believed. That their core base is still intact. Thoughts?
I agree to your analysis.
Hey,
And
just
this
to
would
jump
have
in
political.
on that.
Yeah, hey, John,
Yeah,
go on. Yes.
Hey, yeah, just to jump in
So
on that.
just
So there's,
just to fill you in. Yeah. Go on. Yes.
yeah, I've been listening on YouTube. So,
I've been listening. Okay.
um,
Yeah.
yeah. Just on that, I think it's a good question, but there's two sides to it. One is to what extent has the Awami League retained its support, and then the second is to what extent did anyone else actively try to gather that support? So it may have been less that people are motivated by the loyalty to the Awami League and just the fact that they still haven't found a home yet. So again, in a future where political competition continues, it'll be interesting to see what happens to whatever that base is. And hello, everyone.
Yeah. 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 That is also a very good point. Could I?
See, the sound isn't working.
So the sound isn't working. Whose sound isn't working? Okay, so just to remind everyone how, this is the first time we're doing this election night live or any kind of live. So if I could just request people to quickly introduce themselves, who they are and where they're dialing in from, and then yeah. So for example, well, I believe most of us know each other, but some people may or may not. So John, just uh, pushing you a little bit more on that. Um, how do we know whether it was that the Awami League people had not voted because no one reached out to them versus that they are true Awami League and they? I mean, what would we know? What kind of behavior would you? Yeah, how would we know? Basically, that's the question.
Yeah, no, it's a good question. I mean, I wish there had been some exit polling and some way to determine that. Maybe there'll be polling after the election to ask people that question of if you didn't vote, why didn't you vote? Again, that would be useful information to have. But I think the broader issue this points to is I always thought that the turnout was going to give you a proxy for how much support the Awami League still has. So again, if you have support in the 50s, then I think that does give an argument that there's still a significant percentage of the population that has that inclination. I don't think it undermines the legitimacy of the election, but it raises some questions. What it will hopefully do, though, is it will spur more discussion of this whole issue of truth, healing, and ultimately reconciliation. And presumably this will be one of the priorities, maybe not the top priority, but it'll be something that the next government will have to do. And all of the parties included something in their platform on this. So what I would suspect will happen is that there will be some process of, individuals in the new government reaching out to elements, from the Awami League to have a discussion about what the future holds. And ultimately, I think this is a good thing for Bangladesh.
Um,
Jyoti Rahman, can you hear me?
I've got some. Yes, of course. Go on. Yes, Rubaiyat.
Go ahead,
Yeah, I
Rubat,
have a
please.
question to you actually. So you remember when we were doing simulations and we were wondering how much the Awami League votes will matter for BNP, and the assumption was that if BNP was not getting a fair share of the Awami League votes and if they're not turning out, then BNP will be at risk. There will be a huge risk for them. But now, if we're assuming that there is a 55% to 60% turnout, and we're assuming that the Awami League voters did not turn out, then why BNP did so good?
That is a very good question. That is very very that is true. So were you in the part where Saif had a alternative theory? Did you listen to that bit?
No, I
So
didn't
Saif
actually.
theory.
So
So Saif, you want to tell your theory again?
So the theory basically was that in competitive, I mean, setting it up as a hypothesis to the extent we can for our data going forward, to the extent that it is a competitive seat, you would, or if it's an uncompetitive seat, you would expect there to be less turnout, just because people have less of an incentive to vote. If you know what the result is, and you know that your vote is not going to really make that much of a difference to the outcome, then the chances are that you will not show up, even though you might otherwise be inclined to show up in a competitive setting, right? The thing to look into is whether where we have a landslide or there was an expectation of a landslide, particularly from my perspective outside of the urban areas, whether the numbers actually show that there is a depressed turnout. If that is the case, I think you would, there's less to arguing that, the 45% gap that we have of people not showing up, or the 20% gap that we have of depressed turnout, that really fully represents Alma League's vote and more represents sort of just the way that the elections have been set up, and where you do have one party that is dominant and was expected to win in big chunks of.
So I have a theory actually. We need to measure this in the future. So a lot of the people are voters in one constituency, but they're residing in another constituency, right? So let's say I am a voter in Chattogram, but I reside in Dhaka, but I took my family to Chittagong to vote, and I came back. I flew back to Dhaka in the midday. But lots of people are here in Dhaka, and even today in our Adda here in Counterpoint, we had one of our colleagues, friends, who is a voter in Sylhet, and he didn't go and vote. And I was surprised he didn't go. So, but the point is, this is us. But if you look at a lot of the, let's say, working class population, they couldn't go, even though there was a huge. We saw in TV and we saw in social media people going on train and buses to their villages to vote. But I believe there is a good number of population who probably reside in Chattogram, but are voters in Dhaka and vice versa. So that is probably something that has affected the Dhaka votes, the Chattogram votes, the major city votes. What would you think? Because the turnout problem we are seeing mostly in Dhaka and Chattogram, I would say, less so in Khulna, less so in Rajshahi, isn't it?
So, how would that affect the turnout, though? If you are not a Dhaka voter, then it's going to be.
You are a
I mean,
Dhaka voter
you are not a
residing in
Dhaka voter,
Chattogram.
right?
You're-
So
you don't
turnout
come-
is,
I mean, let's say you're a
and you
Moyamensing
didn't
voter
come back. Okay, I see.
living in Dhaka City, right?
I see.
And I think what Rubaiyat is saying is that a segment, a portion of the depressed turnout is owed to the fact that there just is a larger proportion of the population that actually now is residing in Dhaka, but is still registered wherever they are. And
And the
Right.
same with the Dhaka voters.
But that is always present in every election, right? That's always
right, but I think that the question is whether in the last 17 years there's actually been a market shift in the way that the population is distributed. Number one, and second, I mean, I think this still fits into the hypothesis that I was trying to put forward, which was that, I mean, let's think of it as basically a transaction cost to voting, right? And you are less likely to spend the transaction cost if you think that my vote really isn't worth that much in a non-competitive seat. I mean, I'll give you one example. One of the people who works in our house, his vote's in Isharganj, and he's in Dhaka. Normally he would have gone, but he was like, my vote's really not going to be doing too much.
Yeah,
we
can I
want
add
to
some
ask-
points?
Go on. Sorry.
Hello.
So I was
just
saying, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. I was just to get into Jyotibhai's point on the conjecture of Awami League 20%. I don't know if it's going to be 20% or not. I think some part of Awami League did vote, but
Can't seem to hear anyone.
can you hear me?
I can.
Yeah. So I think a part of
Zafar,
the
can you hear
Awami
me?
League voter. Yeah. Can you all hear me?
Yeah,
Okay.
I can hear you.
Okay. So the part of
Okay.
the
Hi,
AR
John.
voter
How
did
you
vote,
doing?
but a large part
Hello, everyone.
probably did not vote. And
I think there are a couple of points about turnout that are interesting, and I think you should take international reference points. So if I go back to the 2024 UK election, that had barely 55% turnout. I'm not sure what the numbers are in the US midterms or in the US presidential elections, but so I think that's one factor. I think you're never going to get 80% turnout. I think that's a ridiculous number, and most elections in the world never get that number. There is undoubtedly an impact of Awami League voters, some Awami League voters staying away. But let me give you a qualitative example. Mulavi Bazar 1, which is my district in Sylhet. My village used to have been Awami League for 17 years, 3 elections, and probably naturally so. But that has gone convincingly to BNP, and the 50 or 60 family members I have in that village all voted for BNP in this election. So I don't think it's been a mass boycott by Awami League, but they obviously do have their diehards, which are about 15%. So if you add that 15% onto the 55% turnout that we're projecting, that takes you up to 70%. And that would be very, very healthy in any national election anywhere in the world. But again, let's get the real numbers, and I'm sure people like Rubaiyat and others will analyse that and give us more accurate bits of feedback. The other point I just wanted to raise was I think that, I travelled a lot during this election to parts of very religious conservative Sylhet, very religious conservative Chittagong, in the Bandarbans, in Rangamati. I went down to Noakhali, to Dinajpur. And the mistake a lot of people were making about the conservative religious people of Bangladesh is that they're all pro-Jamaat. And they're blatantly not. In fact, I would go as far as to suggest that the majority of what we consider to be religious conservative Muslims of Bangladesh are not pro-Jamaat. And I'll give an example. So in Rangunia in Chittagong, campaign that I know very well, Humam Kabir Chowdhury, the results are going to come through probably 60% in his favour, 20% to Jamaat, 20% to Andalon, which is the kind of Hafazat group. So, pious Muslims in Bangladesh, I think the majority of them do not buy into the Jamaat-e-Islam rhetoric or their interpretation of Islam or them as a political ideology. And it's on that basis that, again, results will tell, but I can't see how they'll get more than 40 seats in a first past the post system. You need to win minimum of 40% to win a seat. And the point I've made many times to Zafar and to others, in the last UK election, Labour, with only 34% of the national vote, that converted into 67% of parliamentary seats in a first past the post system. So if BNP can get roughly 45% national share vote, even if Jamaat get 25%, they're the ones who are going to suffer massively in a first past the post system. So that's what I'm projecting. I still think BNP will win 200 to 220, and Jamaat will do 35 to absolute maximum 50. But I think they'll probably get about 35 to 40. That goes against what Rubaiyat is projecting and many other experts are projecting. But, I've also had my own set of data and experiences, and that's what I think will be the outcome. Thank you.
And if I could just come in, Tofel, as you said, it seems now very clear, because the numbers you gave said 45. It seems clear now that the BNP will exceed 45% of the vote nationally. Maybe they'll be closer to 50. Jamaat may get about 30% of the vote. So it's going to be very interesting to see if those patterns hold. And the only other point I would make in support of your point is, of course, we don't even necessarily need to look at the last UK general election for a good example of what you're talking about. If we even look at elections here
Zafar
in
Bhai, I think your
Bangladesh,
sound is dropped.
if you look at the 2001 election, where both Awami League and BNP ended up with roughly the same amount of votes, but because of how they were, the BNP alliance and the AL alliance, because of how they were distributed, BNP of course won all the seats. So you see, that's a big it's a big consideration when we're trying to extrapolate seats from popular vote. So I just thought I'd, build on your point. And it's going to be very interesting to see what these numbers look like moving forward.
So we do have some numbers, and one thing that is possibly a surprise is the strength of Jamaat in Dhaka. Um, or it they have won at least one seat. So this was an interesting seat where there were three candidates. All of them are called Saiful. None of them are from BNP. So BNP vacated the seat for a little-known left party, and so and then the BNP leader or candidate from that area, also a Saiful, ran as rebel, and the Jamaat candidate there was also somebody called Saiful. So there are three Saifuls. None of them is from BNP, and it seems that the Jamaat Saiful has won that seat. So that's one seat that has gone to Jamaat. And also, if you believe social media, Jamaat is claiming as many as 5 seats in Dhaka out of 20, and possibly one in Ghazipur, which is just so Metro Dhaka, which is, if we think Dhaka,
But
Chittagong,
isn't that in line, Jyoti, with what you and Fahim at least were projecting in your pre-election analysis? I mean, I think the more interesting thing is that typically doing very well in Dhaka has translated into doing very well nationally. But what we may be seeing in this election is that relationship no longer holds true. So you'd see a party, typically the party which is going to get the majority of seats sweeps Dhaka, if I'm not wrong. And so if you're going to see Jamaat getting, let's say, a half dozen seats in Dhaka, you'd expect them to correspondingly do much better than they have done outside of Dhaka. So maybe that cast iron rule of Bangladeshi politics, which we have seen, is really sort of coming unstuck. And I think this speaks to the point we were making earlier about voter turnout. Bangladesh has changed a lot, and especially since we had our last real election 17 years ago, 18 years ago. And
yeah.
it's quite possible that many, many things have changed, and we are still struggling to really understand it because we're still thinking about, uh, you know, let's say if we have a data set starting from 1973 going all the way to 2008, saying the last three elections are not helpful as far as understanding what's going on in the country. Well, the fact of the matter is our last piece of data is from 18 years ago. How useful is that? It would be like trying to understand US politics in by looking at what was happening in America in 2006. Okay,
True,
and
true.
you would learn nothing because there's been a tectonic change. You could not understand Donald Trump. You couldn't understand anything that's happening in U.S. politics if your frame of reference was, let's say, the 2004 or the 2008 national elections. And that's really what we're trying to do here. And so maybe a lot of what we're seeing in terms of trying to make sense of it is that is that we really are struggling to fill a 15-year gap in our knowledge of where the country is and where the country has been. It's just something I feel. One of the things about this election, which I'm very fascinated by, of course, we've missed the ability to vote for our leaders, and that's, of course, the primary benefit of any election. That's why we have elections, so we can get to choose our leaders. But the second point is elections teach us a lot about ourselves. And since we haven't had elections, there's a lot about ourselves we don't know. And I, for one, and I'm sure all of us, we're all, wonks, right? We are going to be looking for weeks and months pouring through this data, which is going to have been generated by this election. I think by the time we're done, we are going to understand that many, many things may have changed in cast iron rules of Bangladeshi politics may not be the same as what they once were. It's just a thought I had.
So on that, take this with a grain of salt because this is Jamaat's claim and not necessarily verified or accepted by others. However, the claim is that the Jamaat has claimed victory in 56 seats so far,
Mhm.
and of those 56, five are in Dhaka. So and they are projecting that they could get up to 90. Okay, so if we take what Tofel and Zafar had said before about first past the post and so on, it seems to me that in Bangladesh at least, and again, this is Jamaat's claim. We don't know if this is true, but if we say that it's ballpark correct, so maybe it's not 56, maybe it's 52 or something or whatever. If it's ballpark correct, what we're seeing is a party with fewer votes, as in party coming second, which usually gets far fewer seats in this voting system, our voting system, is actually overperforming relative to that benchmark. But also that the party that is winning and winning quite comfortably has lost a whole bunch of seats in Dhaka. So the rule here is it's just not that the parties win. A party that wins 5-6 seats in Dhaka should win. It's more than that. It is that historically, Dhaka has always voted in wave to the winner. Okay, so whoever wins everything in Dhaka. That had
Right.
been the historical thing. This time, we may end up seeing that the BNP wins a comfortable victory, sort of whatever that number might be. As in, BNP's victory is not questioned. Um, Jamaat has come second, that is not questioned. But this party that has come second has won a sizable chunk of seats in Dhaka. That has never happened before. So that might be, sort of one big shift.
Could be.
We have a question from the audience. Was the talk of a possible surprise victory for Jamaat credible or planted? Does anyone want to take this?
I'll take
Answer.
it.
Sure.
I'll take it. I
Yeah.
don't think it was planted even in the slightest. Okay. Live here in Dhaka. I live in Gulshan. Believe me when I say the blind panic you saw among Dhaka elites was very, very real. It was organic. It was not planted at all. And, there are many complicated reasons why and how people ended up believing that. But I really think that a part of it has to do with, I think Jamaat has a very skillful and sophisticated online game. So if you are getting most of your news and your commentary, or you're following the election or the pre-election online, that would probably account for your belief that the Jamaat is doing very well. I think Jamaat has also done well, and we'll see this when I don't know. I mean, we don't have exit polls here in Bangladesh, but perhaps there's going to be some kind of granular um, things. You can look at voting centers, and that's a proxy. I think Jamaat has done quite well among the working class denizens of Dhaka 17, let's say. So we had, of course, Tariq Rahman was riding against the Jamaat candidate Khalid in Dhaka 17. It's not just Gulshan Bunani Baidhara, it's also Korail, it's also Kalachandpur, it's also Badda. So it's quite a economically diverse population, and it's interesting there. And I would actually say that not only was it not planted, and I presume the question which has come from Munir Kuduspai is that planted by the Jamaat in a sense to create a sort of self-fulfilling prophecy. I would suggest that not only I don't think it was planted, I actually think it will have worked against Jamaat's interests in the final analysis, in that now, even if they win, let's say 50 or 60 seats, that will be seen, since many people were thinking they were going to think 80, 100, 120. You've had people thinking maybe they're going to take the whole thing. In comparison, that's going to seem like a a relative failure on their part. Whereas, again, if you look at their previous record, I think the most they've ever won by themselves is 12 seats. If they're getting 30% of vote, this is by any definition a fantastic performance by them. But because they haven't made it to their previous expectations, which this may in fact actually hurt them. And in fact, BNP, at one point, if they were perhaps thinking that they were hoping to get 230, 250 seats, now if they get 180 seats, 190 seats, the fact that they're still winning, the fact that they have still comfortably won the election will be something which they will feel gratified about. Whereas, had this talk of Jamaat performing so well not been there over the last couple of months, BNP would have considered getting sub 200 seats not a good performance. So I feel that all of this Jamaat chatter may have hurt them and helped BNP.
So again, just quickly looking at the numbers. So the 56 that Jamaat is claiming is that they have claimed that they have won. They might be ahead in few others, right? And BNP is claiming that if you count the numbers that they are ahead, is going to be over 220. So obviously, if you take BNP's maximalist claim of 220 and Jamaat's maximalist claim of 90, then you get more than 300. So that's not possible. So, but if we did actually end up with a situation where BNP is less than 2/3 and Jamaat is less than 1/3, and we've got a bunch of NCP guys in the parliament, all things considered, that's actually probably not a bad composition, right? In terms of governance, in terms of opposition, holding the government to account and all of those kind of things. You probably couldn't have designed this better. Not that I'm suggesting anyone has designed anything. So we have been online for about an hour. I think we're going to draw this probably to a close. Those of you who are in Dhaka, enjoy the Adda in the office, or and watch the election together. I wish I could join you there. Those of you who are joining in from other parts of the world, this is the election that we had been waiting for so long, and it has happened. One other thought that I think John had mentioned before, a culture that Bangladesh desperately needs is a concession speech. And that is something we had never seen. No party in our history had ever accepted defeat. To the extent that I know the point Zafar has made, and that is well taken, which is that a very good performance by Jamaat may seem like a disappointment to them, but in reality, Jamaat has gone from being a party with 10% vote, 18 seats maximum, to a party with 30% plus vote as the main opposition party, whatever that final number may be, whether it's 56 or 96 or whatever it is a very strong performance. Hopefully, and they had never won in Dhaka, and now they may have 5, 6, 7 seats in Metro Dhaka. So one would wish, it would be good for the country, for the party, for democracy to have a proper concession speech. And I'm hopeful because the very first seat that was announced was in Sulamganj, which was contested between BNP's Nasib Chaudhuri and Jamaat's Shishir Monir. Now, Shishir Monir is not your traditional Jamaat in the sense that he had not come from the party apparatus. To put it bluntly, he did not he's not a bearded fellow. He doesn't wear the traditional the Punjabi and tupi and all of that. He is an advocate of the Supreme Court of Bangladesh. I think he's barrister. I think we call them barrister in Bangladesh. So
he's a barrister. It's a little bit different, but he is a barrister.
He's a barrister. My bad. He's a barrister. He had represented the party in the consensus commission, very articulate, made a in Sunamganj, there is not a traditional Jamaat place. That area, I think, was the former seat of Suranjit Sengupta of Awami League, and before that, a left party. So, sort of for him to make a very strong run in Sunamganj itself was something. And then he had lost, and he had accepted defeat and congratulated Nasir Chaudhuri. Nurul Haq Noor, the VP Noor, as he's called, from Ganodhikar Parishad, has won. In the southern part of the country, he faced tough challenge from a BNP rebel candidate who had congratulated Noor, after Noor had won. So at individual level, this is happening. So one would hope that this also happens at national level, and that would be probably the biggest. That probably would be the most important thing that could happen for the consolidation of democracy. This is something that did not happen in the 90s when Sheikh Hasina had lost unexpectedly to BNP and claimed Chukku Kachubi right away. And that basically soured the post-election transition from the day one. So let's see what happens tomorrow. Tomorrow is a new dawn in Bangladesh, with election results formally coming in. So yeah, any thoughts before Zafar or anyone else?
I'm just interested. Do you know any information about Tasnim Zara and Patwari?
So I think okay. So Patwari first. This is when they in the very early hours of results being announced, social media was abuzz that Patwari was winning. He was beating Mirza Abbas. But as the numbers came in, it has become very clear that Mirza Abbas is comfortably ahead and should win that seat. Zara, unfortunately, has not made a strong showing. I personally think that she has done a wonderful job campaigning and has received, a respectable number of votes. But I think so far the numbers look like it's going to go quite comfortably to Habib, the BNP candidate.
Yeah, but like I said, the results will keep coming in. It's probably going to be a couple of hours before we really get a full picture. It's late night for us, but for those of you who are in Australia, the UK, and the US, as well as elsewhere, I guess your day is just getting started or halfway. So you keep on watching.
And Zafar, we hadn't discussed this, but there is no reason to, once the results are fully in, we could just put on a different show. We could do this again, or you and I could have a talk or something. So we'll see.
Absolutely.
We haven't done this before because Bangladesh has not had an election in the age of live stream, social media, and any of these things.
That's right. Back in 2008, when we were in Dishti Park, we live blogged it. So that's the closest.
And we live blogged it, like literally, typed it, right? So this is new for us as well.
In the old definition of the term. All right, everyone. So this is great. Thank you for tuning in. Carry on, share information, and I think everything's going to become very clear in the next few hours.
Hey, thanks everyone.
Okay, thank you so much.
Okay.